Hello.
Hi.
What a lovely day.
That
Here
it
by
is
the
for me.
creek.
Yes.
All right. So what are you wanting to tell us all today?
Well, the first thing I want to do is welcome you all on this gorgeous spring day. It's amazing. I mean, 2 days ago, most of the trees weren't leafed out, and we came outside, and in one day, it's like magic. Spring has sprung. So here we are, and we have a topic to talk about today.
Which is...
I'm hoping to introduce you to mitochondria in a new and different way. I'm hoping that by the time we're done with this show, that you understand that mitochondria are so foundational to everything having to do with our mood, our levels of stress, our levels of joy, our levels of productivity, fatigue, things that really have a fundamental level of quality of life for you. For us as humans, we have been studying mitochondria for a long time. They're in every single cell of our body. They're particularly in our brains, in our hearts, in our eyes, in our muscle tissue, but they are in every cell, and what they do is they provide energy. Something called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And those letters have become synonymous with energy. They provide the energy to the cell. And it's amazing. We actually will produce somewhere, depending upon our weight and our health, as much as 600 pounds of ATP in a day to keep us going. And if we were to be without ATP for even a minute or two, we would die. It's that essential to our life. And because they are so primitive and so foundational, they basically are very similar to our limbic system of our brain. We could think of them in that way, about the actual basics of life. We need to eat food that are natural to the mitochondria, that will feed them. And that includes high quality fats, tropical fats that are high in short chain fatty acid. And a good example of that is coconut oil. Another is palm oil. And another is what we call MCT oil, which is derived typically from coconut and or palm oil, that is just the short chain fatty acids that actually feeds the mitochondria and makes them happy. It's kind of like giving your dog a bone.
Yes.
Give your mitochondria, a hit of really high quality MCTs. The interesting thing is that mitochondria are ancient bacteria, and as we evolved as humans, our diet was very, very different from how it is today. Our diet now is primarily, for many people, not even real food. I call it Frankenfood. So I know I've talked a lot about foods. I've talked a lot about ketogenic diets. I've talked a lot about quality fats. And one thing we can add to this list is polyphenols, because they are a part of plants that are very supportive and nutritious to the mitochondria. And these polyphenols are found in dark-colored natural fruits like blueberries, in vegetables like greens, kale, chard, collards, mustard greens, wild greens, dandelions. You know, it's so crazy to me that dandelions, which are very healing and protective to the liver, they're known for that. People are poisoning, creating more problems for their livers, when instead they should be picking them and eating them. And they will heal their livers instead of creating more liver problems. So,
and they're everywhere.
Yes.
There's no end of dandelions.
So it's the idea of wanting to protect ourselves from starving. The mitochondria make us eat. We also need to have the ability to move. And even when we're sedentary, there's so many things that are moving in our body. Just breathing creates a tremendous amount of movement. But there's movement that we're unaware of, perhaps, of our blood moving through our body and things like that. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not beneficial to the mitochondria to move, because we should all be at least taking a walk every day to help our mitochondria function well, and possibly a strong workout, and we can talk more about that in a few minutes. But the idea of being able to run away so you don't get killed or so you can catch food is essential to life also. And I would love to talk with you more about movement, the actual instinctual movement that comes from shaking, and how in nature, if an animal is traumatized, it will shake it off, and how we store the frequencies of the information in our cells and how we can shake that off. And there is wonderful research that's been done for people like policemen and maybe SEALs and first responders who have experienced profound levels of stress, or just humans who have, anywhere in the world who have had super awful stresses happen to them. Any level of stress, we can learn how to move through our bodies and out of our bodies so that the mitochondria can be used for positive energy rather than that fear response. So I'd like to talk about that in the future. And then the third level, sexuality. So I don't know that I'm going to get too much into that, other than to say that loving sex is a really profound mitochondrial stimulator. And they've, people who have done studies have shown that after, I guess it's not only loving sex, but after emissions for both men and women after orgasm, there is an increase in mitochondria. So,
Really?
Yes, it's very surprising, because I know my tantric studies would say, oh, you're not supposed to, release very often. And it appears that this mitochondrial information research is saying something different. So over time, I'd like to look into that more deeply. So these are qualities that humans are typically not very proud of in themselves if they are not if they're totally controlled by these kinds of instincts of overeating, of being a killer, or being just totally outrageous with sex and having your total focus on sex. It's kind of hard to think of anything or do anything else. Right? So when people want to be productive, and when they want to be loving and have families and make a difference in the world, actually being able to have strong and healthy mitochondria that we are controlling and directing rather than just being at the effect of is a really lovely thing. And that's so much what loving families are about creating desire for quality of life, caring, tenderness, connection, human betterment. All these things the mitochondria can provide us the energy for, but they will always first help us to survive and take care of those three things. So we can help to train the mitochondria to be our buddies, to be our support, to help us, because fear, if you think about it, is the underlying thing that would make us eat more than what we need, right? Fear that there's not going to be enough, or fear that we can't handle an emotion, so we have to numb ourselves down and make ourselves, just totally engaged in digestion, so we have no energy to feel anything. If we have a healthy relationship with food, then our mitochondria feel safe. They know they're going to be fed when they need to be fed. They know they're going to have the nutrients that they need. That's a really important part of all this. we want to, really support our mitochondria by basically showing them that we're safe. And when we show them that we're safe, they don't have to go into this fight and flight mode, which they will take as a fail-safe whenever in great fear for our life. We have ancestral memories in our bodies, and memories that are very profound, that again have to do with survival, that are put into place during the first 9 months when we're in the womb. There's a very strong download having to do with our conception. A very strong download having to do with any suffering, fears, or life-threatening events that happen to mom that we will take on if we're in the womb. So it's, again, really interesting to look at it from a survival point of view. A baby can't survive without its parents. So the baby wants mom to not be stressed so that mom can take care of her or him. And so she will or he will take on the biggest stressors of mom and look for a way to protect her, be a living example of how to live a life that is free of the stress that mom is experiencing. So first of all, whether a conception is in love or happens as a rape or happens as, a drunken night and just happened to get pregnant, or two people sat down and really decided that this is the time they want a child, they go into a deeply beautiful, loving place and express their love and commitment to raising a family in a beautiful and healthy and peaceful way. When that's the case, then we have a very different download into the mitochondria, into the cells, into the emotional aspects of the being. And feeling safe happens from being wanted and being loved. And not feeling safe would stimulate all of those protection type hormones and things that our bodies are triggered to produce by our mitochondria if we are challenged by a situation like a rape. So it's a very powerful thing. And during the process of being in the womb, like if mom doesn't feel loved and supported by dad, then the baby is going to feel a need to provide an example of that support rather than receiving what it needs to be in the mode of being truly and deeply nourished. If you want to get into that, Dr. Massey, my beloved, has made a number of beautiful YouTubes, and those are on our website at awakeninghealth.com, that talk in great depth about these timelines and how they affect us and how our psyche is affected, which then shows up in our organs, because our organs are a deep reflection of the emotions that have been stored there. But I don't want to go too deeply into that area, but just to give you an idea that the mitochondria are involved there too.
Uh-huh.
And there's also new research recently that's talking about the relationship of the entire endocrine and mitochondrial system. So when I say endocrine, I'm talking about hormones. And we have hormones that support us with energy, and like the thyroid, and that's metabolism and heat and warmth and mood and ability to burn our fat and all that sort of thing. We have adrenal glands, which are supposed to provide us with the hormones like cortisol and DHEA and pregnenolone, and those ultimately get broken down into our sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. I mean, all of those have a direct relationship to the mitochondria that researchers are now putting out papers and have been received and accepted, and probably another 25 years before people really get that when we do something good for our hormones, we're doing something good for our mitochondria. When we're doing something good for our mitochondria, we are helping to upregulate and take the stress off our hormones of our endocrine glands. They're totally integrated. It's just amazing. So I have kind of an unusual history. I think it's a very unusual history, actually, that I'm very grateful for. I was just wildly interested in who we are as human beings at a very young age. Around 14, I went into a place of just total self-hatred because I felt like I was interested in things that had no depth or meaning. And I wanted to discover real depth and meaning. And I found myself interested in things like Camus and Sartre and the story of the Buddha, finding things like meditation and yoga, and also health food stores. And I discovered Rudolf Steiner's work in anthroposophical medicine and homeopathy when I was 14 years old, and I'm now 65. I was an incredibly sickly child, and I met someone like a few days after I graduated from high school at 17. And he had this profound desire to go off into the woods and live in the woods. And I had always wanted to experience backpacking. So we started out and we took a little backpacking trip to this. I was living in California. We went to a lovely place called Big Sur. And I fell in love with it. And I fell in love with him. And we spent the next couple of years of our lives backpacking in the woods. We would stay out for 3 months and come back in and get supplies and go back out again. Now, I would have done things differently with what I know now as far as supplies go, because my supplies were things like cornmeal and oats and beans and rice and things like that. I was a vegetarian at the time. That had to change pretty quickly because he was not happy with the idea of us having to carry all my food in, whereas he could fish and all the rest of it. So when he finally got across to me that I was either going to eat what he killed and caught, right, or it wasn't going to work, I decided it was worth it. And so I started eating fish. We started eating squirrel. We even had a porcupine once. So it was pretty amazing. But here's what I want to tell you. I could go on and on about stories, but when I came out of the woods, I was so shocked. First of all, I dropped like 30 pounds. I was overweight when I went into the woods. I was literally tying my jeans on to keep them up, and I had no idea that that had happened. But I went into a gas station bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, and I just started cracking up. And I started laughing and going, "That's me?" Because I wasn't fat anymore. And I locked the door and took off my clothes, and I looked in the mirror and could not believe what I saw.
Wow.
I mean, there was a beautiful, healthy, vibrant, firm young woman's body there. I had never seen her before. So I went to my parents' home to visit them. And in those days, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have computers, we had those big, televisions, big, fat, thick, heavy televisions and things like that. We had, of course, electricity running through the whole house. And I could not sleep in the house. It was like my nerves were jangling just from the electricity that was in the walls. And I found that if I went outside a good distance away from the house, where there was no electrical wiring, I could sleep. But I couldn't sleep in the house. We didn't have fluorescent tube lights there. We had regular incandescent lights, so that wasn't a big issue. But I can tell you now that light is so essential. I was out from sunrise to sunset outside. I never, thank God, wore sunglasses. Something said just not to do that. And sunglasses will block the healing rays of the light. There's such beautiful spectrums of colors of light that one can look up, if you like, on the internet and see them, in the rainbow. But if you get up with the sun in the morning and spend half an hour outside, you'll be getting one of the most powerful healings for your mitochondria, thus your entire body and your emotions that you possibly could by being out in that morning sun. This is part of our backyard. I don't know if you can see the gorgeous creek behind us, but I wanted to share it with you. And I also, for my own health, I want to be outdoors as much as I can, because light is one of the most important things. Native, real light from the sun is one of the most important things for the mitochondria. And it enters in through the skin. So I wear as little as I can. I'm in a bathing suit a lot of the time when I'm out here. And also through the eyes. Our eyes are not just cameras, but our eyes receive that light, and then the information goes back into our brain. And there's a lot of scientific research right now that's going on that has to do with how mitochondria communicate with light, with something called biophotons. Photons mean tiny little packets of light. And so it appears that our mitochondria actually communicate through frequencies of light and probably sound. A lot of my practice as a naturopath and homeopath has to do with homeopathy, which is frequencies. It's all frequency driven. And it appears that mitochondria are communicating through frequencies as well. And physicists are now getting really deeply into that data. If you've already spent money on a computer, or you've spent money on cell phones, and you use those technologies, or flat screen TV at night, or you're under LED light in the house, or fluorescent tube light in the house, those are non-native, harmful forms of light and electromagnetic frequencies. And we need to do our best to protect ourselves from those things. This is one of the simplest things I know. Over the last couple of years, I've amassed some different ones, but I just want to show you that this is a very strong EMF protector, a blue blocker it's called, to help block the unnatural frequencies that are in a computer. Now, we do have a computer shooting for us right now, but we're outside, so I'm not wearing blue blockers because I want the sunlight, and it's right here. I'm just looking up into it right now. But if I were in the house and I turned on my computer, I would put these on, or these are actually blue blockers, even though they have very little tint showing. And I might use these in the house when I have a patient. I might also wear these when I go shopping. Yes. But typically I'll wear these when I go shopping because these are kind of nice looking and I care about that.
Yeah.
People think they're just regular glasses.
Yes.
But they do have a much stronger tint. And I find that most stores these days are just loaded with fluorescent tube lights. Mm-hmm. And even as a young child, I would feel awful from fluorescent tube lights. So anyway, I like to have something to protect myself, and I highly recommend that you do also. And these are a very special pair. These are more designed for nighttime, and they will block out all of the different frequencies that would tend to make us hyper or awake. So wearing these for an hour before you go to bed can help people who have insomnia or have difficulty sleeping go to sleep, especially if you're having an unnaturally lit environment.
Now, can you actually sit and read a little bit with those on, or are they too dark for that?
You can actually read with these with good lighting.
Yes.
But I was wearing these every evening, even though I'm one of those people who can fall asleep so easily. But I was wearing them every night, and I just wanted to see what happened. And nighttime is typically the only time that my beloved and I hang out and watch a movie together or something that we're interested in for at least half an hour or so. And I found that I was constantly going like this just to see what the actual colors were. I could make out everything that was going on.
Yes.
And I really didn't want to watch a movie that had beautiful nature scenery or, when I had these on, so I might go and grab my yellows so that I was protected, but I wasn't going to get the red. And, these are better for him because I don't have sleep issues, but he sometimes has a challenge going to sleep, so, yeah. So this is something you can do to help protect yourself. And here in Austin, it looks like we have 5G, and we don't even know the full effects of what that's causing for us at this stage of the game, because a lot of the 5G is also reacting to the electricity, and the electricity for most of us is coming underground. And so many of the things we would do to protect ourselves before, like at some point we'll talk about these things, a sleep sanctuary, where you're using fabric to create a beautiful environment that it's like a Faraday cage to protect you from EMFs.
Yeah.
We don't know if that's a problem now because of the electricity coming into the building through the floors and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So now, we're in a new stage of figuring out what's called biohacks to deal with the kinds of challenges that we're being faced with as humans who are being exposed to new levels of frequencies. And most of us don't recognize that we are frequency beings, like we've talked about in the beginning. And every cell in our body is profoundly affected by frequencies. We know that's true of the mitochondria, and the mitochondria are in every cell. And every second, they're turning over thousands, if not millions of times, and there's millions of them in every cell to produce the energy that we need to talk right now, for you to watch this right now, for you to be breathing. And we're affecting ourselves at the most fundamental level there is through frequency, and we don't know what we're doing. The other thing that I didn't really understand at that point, but I do now, is how important breathing is. So when I went out in the woods with Bob, I was huffing and puffing like you cannot believe. He was wearing a 65-pound pack, and he was in great shape. He was a distance runner. And here I was, this overweight little Jewish American princess from the San Fernando Valley. And putting a pack on my back for the first time. And even though it was nowhere near 65 pounds, it's like 35, 45 pounds, it was really hard, and I huffed and puffed like crazy. But over time, I was able to develop a healthy breathing pattern. So what I've come to understand is the basics of life. Native light first, because this planet cannot exist without sunlight, and neither can we. And we have the most bizarre light situation now. And I'm not going to go deeply into it. I'm just going to say at this moment that if you take a look at statistical charts of how much heart disease there is over the years and how heart disease has progressed. Like over 100 years ago, if someone had a heart attack, doctors would come from hundreds of miles around because it was so rare. Why do we have so many heart attacks today? There's a number of things, but I believe a very big part of it is our relationship with unnatural light and electricity and EMFs, so electromagnetic frequencies. So anyway, breathing is the second most essential thing. And we can't live for even, some people I guess can get by for a few minutes without breath, but very few. Most of us can't even live for a minute or two if our breath was completely stopped. And we have a powerful instinct that if we hold our breaths and try and kill ourselves with breathing, that our bodies will just start breathing again. We might pass out first, but we'll be breathing again. It's profound how important breath is to us. And I'm not sure that we'll get too much into it today, but there's something developed by a Russian doctor who is working with asthma, and he basically showed how this breathing can profoundly affect our mitochondria and our health. And more research is being shown with Boutenko breathing as a major contributing factor, and sometimes the only thing that's changed for certain people having to do with their experience of their bodies healing cancer.
This is Boutenko.
Boutenko, I think it's Buteko.
Okay.
Boutenko breathing. And I mean, I could show you the basics here in just a second. It's just the idea that you just breathe through your nose. And you breathe in gently, breathe out gently through your nose, and then you hold your breath for as long as you can until it's a tiny bit uncomfortable. And then you just gently breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. And doing this work, you can start to build up the amount of time that you comfortably hold your breath. And it's fascinating because the research that's being done right now, I believe in Russia, is showing that when people can't hold their breath for 5 seconds comfortably, people who have cancer can rarely hold their breath for more than 5 seconds comfortably. And as they build up this capacity, it gets to the point where beyond holding your breath for 30 to 45 seconds, at 30 to 45 seconds, the cancer cells can no longer grow. And beyond that, the cancer cells are dying. Maybe another day we'll do a whole show just on Boutenko breathing.
Right.
But you could start out just by doing this little practice, and you definitely want to wait at least 3 or 4 minutes between doing a Boutenko breath like that and doing another one. Begin to explore your relationship with nature and recognize how this body of yours is, and mine, is profoundly precious. And the more I learn about it and how to nurture and care for it, the happier I'll be, and the happier you'll be, and the better world we'll have. And our focus will be on doing things that support quality of life. I would love for you to ultimately understand, and this may happen over the process of 4 or 5 different videos, that almost every malfunction in our body is probably profoundly contributed to by unhappy mitochondria. And our lifestyle is such that it creates unhappy mitochondria. There are simple things that you can do that will make them happy, will make them strong, will cause what we call autophagy, where the old mitochondria die and new healthy ones replace them. And you have control of this by simple things like getting quality light, enjoying the sunrise, enjoying the sunset. It's totally primal to humans. By learning how to breathe properly, that can be part of your everyday life. By making sure that you sleep well, and we'll talk about that. By eating real food that's higher in fat, you'll discover that the cravings for food and eating often and eating junk food will go away when you eat what the body was designed to eat. Simple things like this can make a huge difference. And that's why we're going to be going into all these different relationships of the mitochondria. It may look disjointed at this point, but ultimately we'll be pulling it all together and supporting you in every way we know how to explore your own unique challenges, whether you're fatigued or tired or noticing that your eyesight is going, you have glaucoma or macular degeneration, or you're nearsighted, or you have arthritic pain, or it's hard to get motivated to get up and do things. All of this ultimately comes down to the mitochondria. Even heart disease and liver disease and bowel issues. Bowel issues are huge, and healing the mitochondria can help all of these things. So if we have an eye on mitochondria and frequency by the exposures that we're getting that are harmful, but also positive frequencies through specific types of light healing, but also, for me, the big frequency healer is homeopathy. So all these things can be a profound support to you, are inexpensive, and can be integrated into your lifestyle in a beautiful, simple way that will only bring quality of love and life to you and your family. Feel free to email us or call us if there's some way that we can be of support to you. We do practice here in Austin, and I do see people, as does Rich, by Skype all over the world.